met a salesman like you before. Lines of the world just ripping us apart. Scratch ran out along the way. Think I got one more word left to say. I never met a salesman like you before. Lines of the world just ripping us apart. Scratch ran out nice and slow. Think I got one more mile left to go. Nothing would ever pierce my heart. Worst thing to do is to shatter all my pride. Scratch ran out nice and slow. Think I got one more mile left to go. I never met a salesman like you before. Lines of the world just ripping us apart. Scratch ran out along the way. Think I got one more goddamn word to say.
And good evening, all of our little listeners out there in listener land. This is Wendy. You're listening to Mystic Moon Cafe Radio, and my two usual co-hosts are MIA. We've got June headed off on an adventure or, stuck at the airport, whichever way that goes. And Jacob is on a business trip, so he won't be able to join us either. But with me tonight, I asked my old radio co-host extraordinaire, Seth Michael, psychic medium. And Seth, are you there?
I am there. Thank you for inviting me on.
Well, sure. Thank you for accepting.
This is going to be a great topic. Awesome guest. Really excited.
Absolutely. Would you like to kind of... I am blanking once again, and it's just been that kind of a day for me. I do apologize. Tell everybody what you're doing these days as well.
We just finished up with the Port Gamble Ghost Conference. We had some classes there, and we sold some DVDs. We're still working on getting our I Can't Talk documentary out all around us. If anybody's interested in looking at the trailer or anything, it's allaroundusfilm.com. And we've been accepted in India Film Festival, so that's pretty cool. And then
wow.
I know a film festival you can join.
What's that?
There's one in Egypt that's looking for entries.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, send me an email and I'll connect you guys.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, this man's a personal friend of mine. He'd love to hear from you, I'm sure.
Yay!
Oh, awesome. And
exciting.
And that is Maureen St. Germain. She's our main guest this evening. And I'll go ahead and read a little bio if you guys want me to, and then we can move back into conversation.
Oh, perfect.
Okie dokie. All right. Maureen St. Germain is an American teacher and author who has developed foolproof techniques to access your higher self. In her latest book, one of her later books, Waking Up in 5D, she details how to simplify your own waking up in fifth dimension. Founder of the Akashic Records International, she was granted access to dimensions that have been closed to most humanity for eons. Now she is considered a direct channel to Source. Maureen has over 25 years of experience in the area of mystical and sacred traditions. Known as the Practical Mystic, Maureen is a prolific teacher and facilitator of spiritual knowledge for contemporary life. As a clear channel from Source, she is continuously researching, developing, and introducing new methods that will help you connect with your own wisdom channel and inspire your spiritual awakening. Maureen has personal connections with the angels, ascended masters, Hathors, divine feminine, and the dragons. Yay! Known for her Amazon bestsellers and the power of sacred tools, Opening the Akashic Records, Beyond the Flower of Life, and Be a Genie, she has used sacred geometry and sharing knowledge as she gained from her years of research and meditation on ancient truths. Since 1995, she has traveled worldwide teaching through wisdom teachings and sacred practices. Labeled a modern-day mystic and famous Wisconsin mystics, she has taught in 24 countries, including China, Japan, Australia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Egypt, England, Scotland, Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. She has taught at the prestigious American Center's Kripalu. Thank you. And Omega Institute. As a transformational teacher, author, and intuitive, her books have been translated into Russian, Italian, and Chinese. She has been featured on National Geographic specials and hundreds of radio shows worldwide, including Coast to Coast with George Noory and Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, and now Mystic Moon Cafe with Wendy and Seth. Her company, Transformational Enterprises, Inc., developed the highly acclaimed healing essential oil blends, Aromandalas, designed to facilitate emotional healing, deeper self. Okay. She has served on the board of directors of the Edgar Cayce Center of New York and is a longtime member of the ARE. She does volunteer work with other nonprofits. Her birthday gift was to create a donation campaign to Charity Water. If this is of interest to you, please consider celebrating the holiest day of the year, your birthday, with a campaign to help a nonprofit. And without further ado, here's Maureen. Yay!
Yay! Hi, thank you. It's a great bio. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Seth told me the one I had wasn't quite long enough, so I went in and spliced a little.
That's awesome. You did a great job. Can I have a copy of that?
Well, you betcha. I'll email that to you.
That'd be awesome. I really like the way it read and everything. I'm thinking, she knows how to do this.
Sometimes I run out of breath, though. I do apologize.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I only stumbled over one or two names, so that was really good on my part.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, welcome, and thank you for coming on with us. It's going to be a great show. I
have a question.
Go ahead, Seth, please.
Okay, don't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
I was wondering, do you work with Saint Germain or the energies of him?
Yes, I do. I have a very strong connection to the Ascended Master Saint Germain. And when I was 11 years old, I took the name of Saint Germain as my confirmation name. And when I was in my 20s, I discovered the real Saint Germain. And later in life, a really good friend of mine had a psychic reading with a very well-known, very prestigious psychic. And he said to him, what is my connection with this person? Because he felt so strongly connected to me. And the man said, well, you were a ship captain and you transported Saint Germain back and forth on the Mediterranean. And Maureen was his consort. So my joke is that he didn't give me his name in that lifetime, but he did in this.
Nice.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Now, who was Saint Germain? I'm not familiar with him.
He was called the Wonder Man of Europe.
Okay.
And he was a mystic and a alchemist, and he attempted to unify Europe to work together. And he came very close to building a common ground, highest and best good for Europe. And it failed because of other individuals and other situations. And he is also known in the etheric world as the master of alchemy and the violet flame. And so there are many prayers and decrees to the Ascended Master Saint Germain, whose work literally is like a loan guarantee for our misdeeds or our inappropriate stuff, so that we could keep going. So he kind of held the balance for humanity for a long time. So he is really highly regarded. And in my world, he's like one of the big three, Kasumi, Saint Germain, and El Moria, and they all, work together and for the betterment of humankind on the planet.
Very nice.
What were the other two? What were the other two mentioned?
Kasumi, who was Saint Francis.
Okay.
And El Moria, who was the Shah Jahan, builder of the Taj Mahal.
So very mystical saints indeed.
Yeah. Very powerful beings.
Mm-hmm.
Very special. So yeah.
Okay.
And then another word that was mentioned that I'm not sure if everybody knows is the Hathors.
I was just about to ask that one. Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
Great mind. Take a look.
So
that's right.
The Hathors are beings from Venus, and they were invited to Earth by another ascended master, Sana Kumara. So this is the cosmology. Earth was in a bad place. Mm-hmm. Earth was had devolved and become so unholy that it was about to be destroyed. An experiment gone bad.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Not nearly as bad as, way worse than where we're at right now. Trust me.
Okay.
And the Ascended Master, Sana Kumara, from Venus, came forward and said, I want to do something to save the planet. And so he came to the Earth. And what's really interesting is the Japanese people actually believe he landed on their Mount Kurama. Anyway, the cosmology continues with Sana Kumara at some point inviting the Hathors. Now, the Hathors are beings from Venus as well, and they're quite large. They're like 18 feet tall, and they are represented in a lot of the Egyptian statues. So they have a very sweet feminine face, but then they have cow ears, for example. And there's two lineages of Hathor. One is feline, and one is bovine. And their energy is so loving and so sweet. You know, if you're going through a rough time, let's say you're going through a divorce and you're always mad because, the BS is going on, ask the Hathors to overshadow you so you don't say stuff you would regret later. They will, and you'll be in a great place. So these beings were visiting Earth to help bring the love quotient up. And there were many artists in Egypt during the time of the pharaohs that they could see them. And so that's why they sculpted them. And there's temples to the Hathors at Dendera. There's a temple to the Hathors at Hatshepsut in Egypt. And these places are just yummy. The energy is just so lovely and loving. It's an energy of such love and acceptance. It's hard to describe. But these beings have a great sense of humor, and they're just delightful to have in your world, and they love helping humanity. So
wonderful.
That's the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be in a utopian type place where a sense of humor wasn't appreciated.
Yeah.
Inappropriate or not, that's my go-to.
Yeah. One of the things that happened in a meditation that I took I took a group of students through, and this is a story in one of the books. He wanted to experience the Hathors, and so he made this request, and he could see these giant beings in front of him, and he asked them what it was like to be a Hathor, and they said, well, bite my toe. So, in his mind's eye, he's biting on the toe of the Hathor. And the Hathor's laughing. And he says, bite harder. And the Hathor laughs more. And then, because the Hathor was laughing when he was doing something he thought would be painful, he started to laugh. And he couldn't stop laughing, just telling us about his experience. And the whole point was, everything is funny. And when you're fifth dimensional, everything is funny. When stuff goes wrong, it's just funny. It's hard to describe, but everything is funny.
Good. That's it is. It to one degree or another, whether it's ironically or slapstick, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can, as you say, it's either the irony that makes you laugh, this is hopeless or helpless, or the slapstick stuff, because now you are seeing beyond your own illusion, beyond your own drama, beyond your own need to be right or to be validated or vindicated or whatever it is. So, and all those things come together as opportunities for us in 5D. So, and the whole point of opening the Akashic Records is to help you see your way through the drama you are in so that you can make the highest choices And I like to call it the open book test, because, if you're in chemistry and they say you can bring your lab book to class with you for your final exam, you're using your book, but you still have to put the answers on the page. Mm-hmm. So when you go in the Akashic Records and you ask about a situation or a person or a circumstance, and you just don't know, what's going on, and you're kind of frustrated, and you ask, and the record keepers tell you, what happens is your behavior changes, and you mellow out because you now have a much bigger picture of what's going on. There was a guy who called in on a radio show who was apparently a spiritual teacher himself, and had a adult daughter, or like a young adult, maybe an 18 or 20-year-old. And she was really obnoxious to him, and he felt that he'd been a good dad, and he felt that he'd done a good job, and he couldn't quite figure out why she'd behave that way to him. So in the records, they told him that they had been adversaries in another life, and that he had gone on to pursue his spiritual path, and she did not. And this time, he agreed to sponsor her. And they said, the problem is she still sees you as her adversary, even though she doesn't know why. And the thing you are to do is to love her anyway. And it may take a couple of years. Now, if you have any children and you get told they're going to be that way for a couple of years, you at least stop feeling sorry for yourself that your kid's being a jerk to you. And instead you go, okay, great, I'm just going to shower her with love and do my part and let her take care of her part. Mm-hmm. It changes your behavior. And you do it with joy. There's no more resistance. Why do I have to, do this? I remember a friend of mine saying something to me about, well, you just tell that son of yours who had done something inappropriate towards me on Mother's Day, tell him to get his father to take him back to school. And I said, if I do that, I won't get what I want. And my friend said, well, what is it that you want? And I said, time with my son on Mother's Day. You have to be focused here. Mm-hmm. So the records are amazing because they give us insights that help us choose the high road. Now, that man is a mystical guy and a spiritual teacher, and he could have decided to do that anyway. But he was still bummed by the old version of how things are supposed to be in that old, 3D model that said, your kids are supposed to respect you. Mm-hmm. If you treat them well, they should treat you well. But it didn't work out that way, and he didn't know why. And he was worried that maybe he had done something that he didn't know he had done. And the record keeper solved that mystery. That's pretty cool.
Very
That's what makes record keepers so phenomenal.
Now, when we spoke with Lumari a couple of weeks ago, she explained the Akashic Records a little, mostly the same, but just a slight difference, or maybe it's just the way I'm interpreting, but it's more of your instinctive, intuitive side coming through, or that's how it comes through to a lot of people. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, Lumari is a really good friend of mine, and I absolutely love her, and I love her teachings.
Oh, she's awesome.
I love her book.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her to write the foreword to my book. I don't know if you noticed that, but she actually wrote the foreword to my book on the Akashic Records. And I tell all my students to get her book as well as mine. Mm-hmm. So, we're on the same page. She has a different way of teaching. I'm a practical mystic. I'm a mom. I raise 4 kids. I want to give people tools that they can, get down and get dirty and get into it. Mm-hmm. And, everybody's attracted to different teachers. Not everybody's driving Fords. Not everybody's driving Toyotas. We all have different tastes. So the way we both look at it is, people are attracted to the way she's teaching and working with people, and people are attracted to the way I teach. And I'm more of a step-by-step, do this, practice this, look for this. This is a proof that you're in the records. when this happens, that means this, like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's two different approaches.
Oh, okay, sure.
We know we are in total agreement about what the records are, and that is a 11th dimensional zone where beings of such cosmic breadth exist that it's hard to describe them, but she interviewed them in her book, and the beautiful thing about all of that is she helps you get to know what it's like to be in that zone, and what those beings are conveying. You know, and that's a book you can read over and over and over to really kind of get the juiciness of the actual record keepers themselves. And although I am intrigued by that information, I'm not curious about that. I'm more curious about humans and how can I help the humans evolve.
Okay, I understand that. I completely understand that. It's just different aspects of the entire whole of the Akashic Records.
Right,
mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
So now all your listeners have to go buy 2 books, mine and hers.
That's right. and I will go find the links here in a minute and put them in chat for us all too.
Oh, excellent.
Sure.
I have a question for you. One time I was getting ready for a reading. I was focusing on the Akashic Records, and what came was different than I used to see. It was a form of a tiger with a book in its mouth on the client that was about to come in. That was something I remember it to be pretty profound, that turned out to be profound for the client. So I wondered if, and I know you mentioned record keepers. Could they come in the form of animals?
Why not? You know, the tiger probably had special meaning to your client, and the fact that the tiger was holding the book. You know, Edgar Cayce called the Akashic Records the Book of Life, and it is often referred to as a book, even though we also have a broader understanding. It's more like a library, but it's alive. So, you know, you don't go in, you're actually at the threshold and the information's being pulled out for you. You wouldn't want to be in the records because then you would actually be creating a circular argument. You know, if you saw yourself being murdered and it turned out to be your current husband, you might react. And that energy would be in the records. It would be a mess. So you always are really working with record keepers. And it seems to me that if a tiger came holding the book, that was still one of the record keepers for her.
Okay.
Okay, the thought that comes to me there is the tiger the form of the record keeper and messenger, basically? Would that, like, it's a tiger, does that mean that the woman needs to become a tiger and be fierce and fight and or was it just what popped into her head or something?
I think Seth should answer that one.
Probably.
Yeah.
Seth,
I don't. That was so long ago. I just remember the gist. I just remember the vision of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do remember telling her exactly how it came through. So hopefully I think that might have meant something. So if I remember correctly, I can't remember exactly what.
I am sure it did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It's very cool. Absolutely.
So I guess it just comes through and what would make the biggest impact for us.
Yes, and that's well said. One of the things that happens is, you know, if you're in the records, you are channeling both your record keepers and your clients' record keepers. So it's a conglomerate that comes through. And the reason for that is you have a language and your client has a language. And there are reference points that may mean something to you, but they might not mean anything to your client. And that's why both parties are present and working in that environment. You know, and the really big information, and this I think is critical, is it's a reminder that we are all in a cycle of moving our energy to a higher vibration. And the reason anyone can go on the records, anyone can learn to do this, is because we need to speed up. We have technology at one level and our humanity is at another. And we need to bring our humanity up to our technology.
I agree. I can see that. It's very impersonal, and people are so inundated with I don't want to say meanness, but just such harshness and disjointedness from one another. I can see bringing.
So very interesting that you say that. Of course, I'm running around holding my head in 5D as much as I can, holding my head and heart in 5D. Mm-hmm. And I find so many people so loving and supportive and helpful. And, before I moved to New York City, I was coming to New York as a presenter. I would come and do workshops here. And I noticed a huge difference from when I started coming to now. I know a big shift occurred after 9/11. People became much more open-hearted and much more concerned about each other. And today I see concern about you everywhere. If you're walking down the street and the belt to your raincoat is dragging, somebody will come up to you and say, your belt is dragging. It's getting all muddy. Honestly, it's like your mother's on every corner. It's awesome.
Oh man, and then she's gonna say, now Wendy, you know that belt doesn't go with that coat, right?
I've had people tell me stuff like that too. It's so right, though, because it's so sweet. You can't help but feel loved and cherished when people do that.
Absolutely.
Or when, one of my favorite things to do is I love fashion. I love fashion, and I've always been interested in it. And when I was younger, I would buy Vogue magazine and copy all the pictures. I would, and I don't mean photocopy. I mean I would make the thing I liked by copying the design that I saw in Vogue magazine. And so, but today I don't have time to sew. Mm-hmm. And so I would, say to someone, oh, I love your outfit. And they'll tell me where they got it. They'll tell no, you need this web address. And they'll hand me a web, they'll write it out for me real fast. Here's the website. Even, like in a coffee shop or something, somebody will say, no, here's where you get it. It's awesome. Just awesome.
And I guess
So I see that every day. And one of the ways I manufacture that for myself, and I'll share one of my secrets, and that is I ask for a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I come in contact with. And that makes a huge difference. Everybody's, on the side of that 5D energy. And it's pretty profound, but it definitely is there. So
I'm writing that down.
Yeah. Yeah, put that in the chat. I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth.
Heaven on earth.
And everyone I come in contact with. And I'll tell you how I got this. If you want to hear the story, it's a little bit long, but if we have time, I'll share it.
Oh, go right ahead, please.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So this goes way back to maybe 1995 or 96. And at this point, I'm traveling quite a bit because I'm building my business, and I'm in a different city practically every weekend. And so I got to know the staff at the airline because I always flew the same airline because I was in Madison, and then I was flying to various cities, so I'd always have to go through Chicago. So it was always the same airline, fly to Chicago and then somewhere else. So one day I had stayed longer on the West Coast than I normally would because I wanted to have a family time with one of my kids who was living out that way, and came back on, I'll say, Thursday morning, knowing that I had to get on a flight later that day to go to the East Coast. And so when I got off the plane, a familiar face was offloading the baggage, and she looked up and said, oh, hi, Maureen, how you doing? Now, I used to use a phrase that described a bad day. And I won't say the phrase now, but I'll say part of it, and you'll know the rest. if you're having your day from H and you want to fix it, blah, 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 okay?
Mm-hmm.
So when she asked me how my day was, I said, oh, well, this is my day from H, because I got to get back here in 2 hours to fly to the East Coast. And she gave me like this strange look like, what did she just say? And I realized that the teaching phrase had slipped into my language, in my everyday language, which I would never do, but I did. So then I looked at her and did a correction right away.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a day of heaven on earth because I'm flying with United. And we both laughed and I walked away. Well, I came home and there was an inch of water on my basement. I could hear water running, but I couldn't tell from where it was coming. All the faucets were turned off. The housemate that was renting from me told me later, oh yeah, I heard water running all night, but I didn't bother checking it out.
Oh my goodness.
And
okay.
I thought, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, you couldn't even text me or something? Anyway.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah.
There were, you know how sometimes you have lower walls where your laundry room is, where the faucet comes in? Well, there was water leaking between the walls and spilling over into the laundry room. And so we knew it was a pipe between the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And so I first turned the water off at the main. Then I called my neighbor across the street who knows everything about everything. And he came over and he surveyed the situation and he said, well, let's call the plumber. So we called the plumber and the plumber came within an hour, just like he said he would. Then the plumber said to me, I think it's on this wall. I think we need to go into your upstairs bathroom. And I checked in with my higher self, and my higher self said, no, the downstairs bathroom. And so now the plumber's kind of annoyed with me that I'm telling him where to cut a hole in the wall. And he said, well, where do you want me to cut? So I pointed in a general area, and he cut over a little bit from there, and sure enough, he could see where the problem was right away.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up with two small holes the size of, an electric outlet.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But so that was cool. And, the water was already 3 feet high between the walls. So it had to drain out and dry out. And my neighbor came over with some extra fans. I put some fans up. I still had to go away. I called United Airlines and explained my dilemma. And they said, well, we'll waive the change fee. And I said, okay. And they put me on the later flight. Mm-hmm. Then the bill for the repair was only $120, and I was expecting a much bigger bill.
Oh yeah.
So then I took my receipts from my workshop that I just come from and went to the bank. And on my way home, I said to myself, I only needed an extra hour. I could have caught that original flight. So I get home, and the phone is ringing when I walk in. I pick it up, and it's a real person from United Airlines. And she says, both of our feeder flights from Madison are running late. And both of them are an hour late going into Chicago. And if you catch the later flight, which is what you're booked on, you will miss your connection. Is there any way you can get on the earlier flight, which is running an hour late? And I said, actually, yes, I can. My suitcase is already in the car. I was 15 minutes away, and I sat down on the plane, and I thought to myself, how the heck did I pull that off?
Yeah, yep.
And my guide said to me, well, you asked for a day of heaven on earth. And I thought, whoa, if that's
got it.
Next time I have a super busy day, I'm going to ask for a day of heaven on earth again. So I did. The second time I did it, everything was so smooth, I said to myself, I'm not waiting for a busy day. I'm asking every day. And so can you.
Love that.
I do too. And
wow.
And I'm glad you put the plumber, you told the plumber where to go look, because I'm a retired pipe fitter, and and plumbers are always bossy.
No wonder he didn't like it when I told him where to drill. That's funny.
No, he would have hated it. It would have been better if it had been a guy. But, it's perfect. Perfect setup.
Well, and it's funny because my neighbor, an elderly gentleman, was standing, and one of the things my neighbor said to me, which, I was so naive as a homeowner, he said, I'll watch the plumber while you, do what you need to do to get ready for your next trip. And I thought to myself, I didn't know you had to watch a plumber. It was just like...
I could go to plumber's crack with that, and you don't want to watch the plumber's crack. But...
And then, my neighbor, he just came over, he and his wife came over and checked on the house a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And,
you were very taken care
of. The fans were still working and everything was cool. Mm-hmm. So everything worked out. It was amazing.
That's marvelous. That's fantastic.
Totally amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. A crazy, crazy setup to make a point. And what a point it is. And I have been sharing that with people all over the world for probably 10 or more years. Mm-hmm. And I think it is one of the most profound things we can do, because what I have discovered is one of the things people say to me, well, what is fifth dimension anyway? What does that mean? And the answer is it's what everyone tells you is heaven. What the traditional churches say is heaven, that's fifth dimension. And it means that you're in a place of communion with your divine energy, whatever that means to you. Mm-hmm. It means that you are able to see and feel the feelings of the people that you're interacting with. So it's impossible to hurt them because you can feel it the minute you start, and so you would back off because you would feel it yourself. Mm-hmm. And you have wisdom. You have access to wisdom like we have access to the internet. So heaven on earth is asking for fifth dimension.
I like that. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try to incorporate it more. I have a few different times before, this evening, but and when I did, wonderful things happened. Not even for myself or personal gain, but for others around me. So that's,
Wow. Yeah, that's the cool thing. You could have somebody having a horrible interaction with a teller in front of you in line, and now the teller's all worked up.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the one after him, And
here we go.
Energy of heaven on earth, and they just look at you and they hi, Buttercup. Mm-hmm. I'm making a joke here, but, it's like that. It's just amazing.
Right, and if you approach that teller with the smile on your face and just a friendly demeanor, that always seems to help a whole lot as well.
Yes, well, when you're asking for a day of heaven on earth for yourself and everyone else, you already have that smile. There won't be any other expression possible for you. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a controlling way, but in a joyful way.
Right, right.
In love, when you first meet someone and you fall in love, nobody can touch you. You can be driving in traffic and somebody pulls out and say, oh, they must be having a bad day. They must be in a hurry. You're so accommodating and so allowing. Mm-hmm. And that's 5D. It's like being in love all the time. You only see the love part of every action. You don't perceive affront. If we all stopped perceiving affront, that would be amazing. That would change everything.
Yes, it would. The
world would be a self in this dimension?
Yes. Your higher self is your fifth dimensional self. Good question. So that's another thing that's really important that I teach, and that is how to connect with your higher self and get 100% accuracy. And a lot of people, even, well-known mystics will say, oh, I already have a connection to my higher self. And I'll say, okay, great. Do you always follow your higher self? Well, no. Then you don't have such a great connection. Because here's the thing. If your connection to your higher self is so strong that you know it's your higher self, and you know if it's your higher self is going to be right, why would you not follow it? And the answer is you don't know because you don't trust it, because you don't believe you have that connection. Mm-hmm. So even when you say you believe it, you don't. And that's why I tell people to, do the, I have a thing called, it's a thing, Higher Self Challenge. In 45 days, you practice with your higher self unimportant, insignificant questions. And what happens is you develop a rapport with your higher self. You develop familiarity with your higher self, and you get to understand how that works. And one of the things that we do first is we take people through a guided meditation where you ask your higher self for your symbols, for yes, no, and neutral. So, you might get a visual like a color or a geometric shape or a thumbs up for yes, or you might get an itchy ear or, a tingle in your back, or you might hear something like a certain kind of sound, or you might get a taste in your mouth. It could be anything. Or you could even have the word yes show up in your head. Yes. And then you do that with no and neutral. And then for 45 days, you practice with that. And what happens after 45 days is a whole bunch of cool things. Number one, you now have history. How do you make decisions? You always use history. You use the history you find on, let's say you're going to buy a car, Consumer Reports, your friends, the internet, whatever. Now you have 45 days of history asking unimportant stuff, and your higher self was always right. You go to the restaurant that your higher self tells you to, even though you think it's a bad idea, and you run into a friend you've been looking for a while. Mm-hmm. Cool stuff like that starts to happen for perfectly random questions. And it's always about, what am I to do? Am I to take this route to work? Am I to take this bus to get where I want to go? And is it my highest and best good to wear this outfit today? And it's always interesting to me how it plays out. There are days, that I'll say I dress the slouch way, and there are other days that I dress, in my professional attire. Mm-hmm. And there are days that I've completely forgotten about an interview, and I'm in my professional attire, and ready to go. And I see a notice, we'll see you in 10 minutes or something. And oh, no, I didn't remember I had an interview today, but I'm ready. It's not a problem. And that's because my higher self dresses me. and the funny part of all of that is one day a woman came to class in this very strange combination of clothes, jewelry, and whatever. And, women do that. I do that. I know I do that. When you look a woman over and you think to yourself, wow, I really like that dress, or wow, I like her jewelry. Mm-hmm. It's not a demeaning look, but it's definitely the look. Right. And she noticed someone giving her that look, and she kind of shook her finger at her and said, don't even ask. My higher self dressed me. and again, it's if you're willing to play. So, and by the way, yes. We're going to have all kinds of super specials. Like a couple of days before Thanksgiving, and it's going to run for a week. So, right up until the Friday after Thanksgiving, I think. And one of them is, we're telling people that we're going to give away a free booklet on the higher self. But it's for like a certain amount of money that they spend. So, if you're interested in more information, that's one way to get it. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of information in my books. I think practically every one of my books teaches you how to connect with your higher self because it's so important.
I was just saying, that's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Now, will they find these specials on your website, on Facebook, or all of the above?
On my website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the part where you and I disconnect. What?
There was mention of a tele-training. Do you do those anymore?
A tele-summit, yes.
What is that?
Well, first of all, I do a couple of things. I do teleclasses, and so I teach people how to open the Akashic Records in my teleclasses, and they are live taught, which means I am using tools to teach a live class. And I teach both how to open your own records and how to open another's records. And then I also teach a few places in the U.S. and other places. And then I also do telesummits where I give away information and, have an interview and talk with people. And that may be what you saw, Seth.
Oh, okay.
And I also have lots and lots and lots of guided meditations because it's one of the things I'm really good at, and I really like doing them. And one time when I had a Casey reading, and based upon my numerology or my birth date or something, they said, you would be really good at guided meditations. And when I got that report, I started to laugh because I already had like 10 of them, in my resume already. So it was kind of funny. Yeah, I guess that's true. My guided meditations are set up in a very powerful way. A number of them are set up in what I will call call and response. So, for example, I have a meditation to the archangels, and I teach you about Archangel Michael and what he's known for, and then you might ask Archangel Michael, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a space for you to do just that or something different. You can modify it. And so those, I'll call it call and response type setup, is very powerful. But I really focus on guided meditations. So that means those of us who have monkey minds have a way to silence that, because the guided meditations kind of trick you into getting into that calm state so that you are able to receive information. Instead of trying to control your mind with your mind, just follow me. I'm the Pied Piper.
Yeah, exactly. And then if it just goes off, it's just a gentle reminder, like, oops, I'm focusing on Maureen's voice. Mm-hmm. Going back to the voice.
Yeah. And I have a free meditation on my website every month. So I have a blog post that's free, and I recommend people sign up so they get a notice, okay, the new one's out. And the freebies only last for 1 month. And what happens is a lot of times that's how I introduce new stuff, is I'll put it together and I'll have it ready to go. And I use that first release of freebies for feedback, to fine-tune it and make it, the best possible. One of my favorite new meditations that came out last year is called the Golden Bowl. And it turns out that we have 4 sets of sinus cavities, not 2. We know the ones under the eyes next to the nose. Mm-hmm. We know the ones on the side of the face, but a lot of us didn't know that there were more sinus cavities in the back on either side of that bony knot. And it forms what is called the golden bowl, like, a soup bowl. And recently, my guide showed me that it's like a satellite dish for calling home. And this just cracks me up when I get these images. So this particular meditation, I carried around in my head for 7 years. And I knew it was important, and I knew I had a lot of good information, but I didn't quite feel like I was supposed to do anything with it. And then I came across a biblical reference that referred to the golden bowl along with the silver cord, which we know is attached to the body when you have an out-of-body experience. And that did it. I went, oh, that's what I've been waiting for. And so that explanation then is in the intro. And the intro is 12 minutes and the meditation is 12 minutes. So ideally, you can spend 24 minutes and do this meditation. After a few times, you can skip the intro and just do the meditation. And it's remarkable. And what people are telling me, we got a whole page of feedback from the early release that were just like, whoa, this is amazing, So, if somebody wants to try my stuff, I would highly recommend that. And if you want to do it on a free way, then sign up for my blog and download the free meditation of the month, whatever it is. And I always have a permanent guided meditation that never changes, and that's called Divine Government Meditation. And anybody you don't like in government needs your prayers, not your criticism. And that's what that meditation does.
Oh, that's a good message.
Uh-huh.
It really is, but it would be easier said than done, and that's just me, my own hard-headed self.
Well, think of it this way. If you came to me and said, I have a kid and he's in drugs, what am I going to do? And can you help me? If I couldn't do anything, I'd still be able to say, well, I can say some prayers for him. Mm-hmm. I can say some prayers for you, or I can say some prayers for him. So why wouldn't we do that for anybody else that we think is in trouble?
Yeah.
It's like we just, it's so funny. It's so easy to throw mud. That's all I can say.
True. Or just avoid what you don't like, which is that's a favorite go-to for me, but I try to work on it.
I avoid what I don't like also, but I don't have judgment about it. I just say, it's not a match for me. And that's the difference. In 5D, what happens is you notice what you don't like, and you don't find yourself rejecting it as much as you are dismissing it. Rejection implies a bias. Dismissing is no bias. Isn't that interesting?
It is, and it's much healthier as well. Just sometimes it's harder to achieve.
And that's what's happening, I find, everywhere. The energy of people around me and people that I interact with all over the city, whether I'm getting in a cab or I'm on the subway or anything, there's this quality of allowing, but not, allowing is still, I've got mine and you've got yours. But there's this quality of true, non-judgmental interaction. And it's really amazing. Really, really amazing.
I guess
I'm so fortunate.
Oh, go ahead, please.
That's it.
Oh, okay. No, I find that more with the animals that I interact with quite a lot and work with and things, as opposed to people who, I guess I'm a bit of an introvert, so it's I have my defensive shields go up at the drop of a hat with people, but not with animals at all.
Well, this is cool because what you're really doing is reading the field. And you recognize that the animals are part of a kingdom of energy that usually don't carry dark energies. They don't carry perversive energies. And so if you can read the field, which you are probably doing, which is why you're avoiding, people and situations, that's because you are reading the field. But what if you were above that energetically and you could see it, you can read the field, but you're not participating? It's a little bit like watching a little 3-year-old, come outside after a nap. It's just finished raining, and what's the first thing they're going to do? Jump in a puddle. Well, and you're going to let them do that, and you're going to let them get good and dirty, and when it's all done, you take them in and give them a bath and clean clothes, and everything's fine.
Yep. You
don't judge a child for getting dirty. You don't yell at the child for being all full of dirt.
No.
Instead, you champion that they had a good, hard play. And when we look at our own life and the lives of the people around us, when people behave badly, say, well, I guess they're playing in the mud.
Yeah, okay.
It's like a 3-year-old.
Yes, indeed. I guess I just never looked at it that way. I didn't think to at all. Perfect. Thank you.
That will help you step away from this disapproval energy that you kind of have because it isn't safe to be around them. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, as you were about to say.
Question in the chat room. Cindy, who is a friend, she listens a lot. She's also KC Astrology and Tarot. She's asking, where is the best place to start when tapping into information from the Akashic Records?
Well, I think the best place to start is to practice your own method right alongside of it so you can see the difference. So you would ask the same question and write down the answer from your intuition, and then go in the records. And, Seth was onto it when he said he really focused on the records and had a very clear picture of being in the records. So he connected into that portal that's open for anyone who wants access. Now, in my training, we actually use a very specific prayer that helps you get in. You're connecting with the matrix of the beings of light that I work with, and you get access. It's like, oh, I have the password. I got in. Then you write the answer that you get, and then you compare the two. And one of the things I did in the book is I gave people sample questions, and I actually asked them to analyze a bunch of random pictures, because I felt that the pictures were less likely to bring up a thinking response, and instead you'd have to give it an intuitive response. It'd be harder to look at a random picture that, was deliberately unusual and try to make sense out of it. So you can't. So then you just, write down the word to come. It's like that. It's like your mind can't compute. So what does it mean to me? It's like looking at a bunch of hieroglyphs or looking at a bunch of Arabic words and wondering, what does it say? And you'd come up with something. You might be right, you might not be, but you'd have a sense of what those shapes mean. And what that does is remove the ego from the equation. So you do a practice like that to start. That's where you start. And then from there you ask the same question, a verbal question rather than a picture question, of your higher self and of your record keepers. And you compare those notes. And then I take people through a list, and they show them specifically, your higher self is, right there, being in the nitty-gritty, giving you yes and no and real specific information. Your record keepers are going to give you an answer, but then they also give you advice. And that's one of the most profound things about being in the records, is that they give you information, but then they answer your question, but then they also give advice, which is pretty cool.
Definitely.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Now, she's asking, are there portals best left alone in the Akashic Records realm?
From my perspective, there is a main portal that you access that is directly tied to your guides, and that's your primary starting point. And then when you open someone else's records, you are accessing that same portal, but other beings are showing up as well as your own guides, the guides of the person. So there's essentially only one portal. There aren't a bunch of them.
Okay.
And even if you're not using my protocol, you're still going to go through that Stargate to connect with that energy, because that's the dispensation that anyone can go in the records. So, I feel it is inauthentic for someone to say this is the only way to do it.
Right.
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's very egocentric, because we know there's more than one way to get where we want to go. I mean, even on a highway, there's more than one way to get where you want to go. So why wouldn't there be more than one way to get in the records? And there are people who came from the records, and this is mind-boggling. So imagine that you were a member of that energy, that lovely energy, the Akashic Records, and you decided to embody as a human. You would have such an easy time being in the Akashic Records, because that would be your home. It would be super easy. And I have had students who were from the records. Pretty amazing stuff.
Very much so, yes.
And you said that you have a guided meditation that can help people. That's probably good for starting out, right?
Yes. the guided meditation that I was referring to is a guided meditation you would do to connect with your higher self and then take yourself through the higher self protocol.
Oh, okay.
And
Do you have one for that?
As far as the guided meditation for opening the Akashic Records, I do describe what you are to do. But, there's something very interesting. When I read in a book a meditation that I'm supposed to do, I don't do it. But if somebody provided me the audio file and said, if you do this meditation, you'll get this information, I would do it. But I don't know about you guys, but a written meditation that I'm supposed to read and then do, it's like, how am I supposed to do it if I'm reading it? And if I'm not reading, how am I supposed to know what I'm supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Quite the conundrum. Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I've actually, in my own voice, gone into my voice recorder on my phone and read what somebody wrote, let's say, and recorded it so that I could literally move into the state of meditation and so listen. Because people don't realize it, but, left brain, right brain, it's very important that we understand when we move into meditation, we are literally shifting our mental imagery from the place of calculation and logic to the intuitive side. But when you're reading, you're using both.
True.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I like that spot. But Cindy'd like to know if it's possible to get stuck in the records realm.
I don't think so. In fact, if you kept the records open deliberately, because we do a protocol to open, and then we do a protocol to close. And the benefit of that is that we're not supposed to, quote, live in the records. We're supposed to live here. And the records are the resource. You don't live in the public library. That's just a place to get information you might need. You don't live on the Internet. You still go out with your friends. You still play hockey or go to ball games or watch TV shows. So the same is true here. You use the resource to get what you need, to find out when the ball game is or when the TV show is or, whatever you want to find out so that you can go do stuff. But you don't stay on the Internet all day and do research. So it makes no sense to do that. But some people would have this idea that they could live a better life if they had their records open all the time. And the answer is no, you wouldn't. Because you wouldn't be yourself. You wouldn't be getting your own experiences. And that is part of the process. Getting in the records is one way to get the answer key. But you're not expected to stay where the answer key is. You're supposed to take that answer key with you into life and apply it.
Very good. Oh man, I had a. Okay. Sorry, they cut me off all of a sudden from my anti-anxiety medications, and I've been having a little trouble with it. Anyway, I fired the doctor, so it'll all be okay soon. I'm not afraid to do those things. Now, you are. Golly, what is it? The Wisconsin Mystics Association, is that correct?
No, what happened is a woman wrote a book called Famous Wisconsin Mystics.
Oh, there we go. Mm-hmm.
That was the name of her book, and I was just named as one of them.
Oh, okay. Well, Seth is from kind of that region of the world.
Yeah, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, yeah.
I didn't know if you knew anything about it, Seth, at all, or...
What was that?
I didn't know if you knew anything about the book or
no, I
like
didn't.
That.
It's
okay.
That book came out. That book came out. Gosh, back in the early '90s. So I have one copy, and I don't even think it's in print anymore, to be honest.
Wow.
And they never did another. They never did another book. You think that they'd update it or something, but they never did.
Yeah, that would be a cool one to see. Hey, there was on the radio show I listened to, I think, or I don't remember where I heard this. Somebody asked you this question about how you learned to access, and I really liked your answer, and I was wondering if you can answer that again. How did you learn to access the Akashic Records yourself?
Well, first of all, I was tapped to do that work. And I received a message that basically said I was being given access to a domain that had been closed to humanity for eons. And I did study with another organization and was very clearly guided to change what they were teaching because it didn't feel right. And I was told to start an organization, and I didn't want to. I kind of dug my heels in and said, no, I'll just let things be. And they just kept pushing, and, more and more things went down that were not appropriate, and I had to take action. So I did. And I think there's a lot of people like this, where they're put in a situation and they know they're supposed to do something, but they don't want to. It's too much trouble. It's too scary. I might be wrong. Who am I? All of that. And, I'll give the example of a story I told recently about being told back in 2002 to connect the original island of Philae, which was now flooded by the Aswan Dam, with the new one that was built by UNESCO. And the new one they had built stone by stone and copied it, and it was in a slightly different location. And I was told to connect the two islands underground like you would do cables, just draw the connection through. Mm-hmm. And my first reaction when I was meditating, asking what kind of ceremony I was supposed to do when we're here, and I was given that information, and my response was, well, that was 9 years ago. Surely somebody has done this. And then I was told again, you need to do this. And I said, but who am I? And then the response was, so you refuse? No, I'm on it. So when my feet were put to the fire, then I started the organization and began teaching it. And what I found is that the connection that I teach, the higher self connection, made a profound difference in the kind of answers that we get. The invocation where we invoke the presence of the Ascended Masters who oversee the Akashic Records makes a profound difference. It's like people don't think about this, but when you're having a conversation in a room full of people, and you mention someone's name who's in the room, but they're not near you, pretty soon they're standing next to you. Were you looking for me? So when we say the name of an Ascended Master that we know is directly involved in the activity of the Akashic Records, we're soliciting and eliciting their help. And that changes our ability and our success rate. So we're much more likely to be accurate and get a very highly evolved connection. That makes it a lot easier to do that work. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious how the dragons come into play. What kind of creatures, or what their thought processes could even be. They're a little.
It's a great story. I had been working on the book, Waking Up in 5D, and I was in a big outdoor sculpture park in New York area, and all these beautiful sculptures were, spread out over like 12 acres. And I'm looking up in the sky, and I'm seeing dragons. And I've never seen dragon-shaped clouds before, and I've never been into dragons. And I immediately got a hit. The dragons are back. They're telling me that they're present and they're helping people. Now, if you look at the root word of dragon, it turns out it means clarity. So the dragons are all about clarity. They're about helping us get to the truth, getting to the bottom of a story, and to help us to find our way when there are so many things tugging at us. You know, there's advertising and marketing and sound bites and, you know, so many things to influence us. How can we possibly make a decent decision? And so you call in the dragons to help you. But then I found out they were also really good at cleaning up messy traffic. Because, again, it's about clarity and everybody knowing where they need to go so they can move quickly. You know, it's like fitting a puzzle together. Boom, it's done. Mm-hmm. So I began asking the dragons for help and telling my students to do this. And the results were remarkable. And then I was in the cloisters, which is a part of the Met here in New York, and hanging on the wall was this giant tapestry that had been hanging in a monastery in France. And it was a dragon.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, there was this made-up, you know how, you know, the museums often tell the story as they see it. You know, they made some comment about a mythical creature. But I'm looking at this thinking, no, the dragons were there. And that's what they had told me, that they were in the reality at that time. And they were starting to be pursued and driven out. Now, why would the church want to drive out the dragons? Because they were teaching people to tell the truth. Mm-hmm. They were teaching people to tell when the truth was spoken. And so that didn't do well if you're teaching lies. So the dragons came in and made their presence known, made it clear to me that they wanted to be, you know, part of my work. And then when I was working on the book Waking Up in 5D, and the editor said, well, let's make that chapter on the dragons like a, you know, after the close of the book. And I remember flipping out, saying, I don't think so. That's not negotiable. And I called my book agent, who happens to, she tells me, and she told me this one of the first times she ever talked to me, I have dragon DNA. So I told her that they were trying to, you know, give those guys second position, and she said, I'll take care of it. It was very funny. So the dragons are back. They used to be pushed out of the reality and into other dimensions because they were not safe here. But they're back. They're safe. They are elementals. They are real. They are not reptiles. A lot of people think they're reptiles, but they're not. They are warm-blooded. And their purpose is to help humans wake up and to nourish the hungry who are looking for answers. And I have one really sweet story that's in the book, but I'd like to share it about a friend of mine, a black man who was a chiropractor, and he was sitting in my apartment, and he was telling me this big, sad story about what was going on in his world. And he was really down. And I needed to leave the room, so I told him how to connect with this dragon, and I said, please do this. I got to, you know, walk away for a few minutes, take care of something, but I'll be back in the living room shortly. So I left the room and came back about 10 minutes later, and he was crying. And he said, I had this giant white dragon come in, and she was all iridescent. And, you know, she gave me information. She told me her name. And that's one of the things about the dragons. When you want to work with your dragon, or dragons, plural, if they tell you your name, then their names, then you have them as a resource and can call them in whenever you want. And they will answer. It's like them saying, okay, I'll be your dragon. You know, it's like, you know, being your person if you're a dog, you know. Mm-hmm. And they are different from elementals in that they do have free will. So they don't have to do what they do. They do it because they love humanity. So the dragons are like these amazing beings. And fortunately, they never left the culture of the East. And they pretty much stayed in the culture of the mythology, fairy tales and things like that. But they really went out of favor for a long time and were not here to help people. And they're back.
Mm-hmm. Now, Cindy is... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Seth.
That's okay. One time we were doing a space cleansing, and it was a pretty heavy and sick energy. And I was just doing my thing, and all of a sudden I look behind me, and there's this huge dragon. And at first I'm like, uh-oh. But then it was actually helping clear the space. It was pretty amazing, and that was the only time I've seen it. So I'd like to call it back sometime and have a conversation. It was pretty awesome.
Well, you're in luck, because I have this little Call on Your Dragons meditation, and it's like $99 or something like that on my website, and it's really quite amazing. And I get so many emails from people thanking me for telling them how to call on their dragons, and that they've got their names and everything. It's very cool.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Absolutely. Now, Cindy was asking, is the dragon similar to the Abrahamic serpent?
I don't know the answer. I don't know about the Abrahamic serpent.
Oh, okay. Me neither.
Yeah, I've never heard of that either. Ask her what it means. What is that?
Cindy, what does that mean?
Come on the show and tell us.
You want me to call you real quick, Cindy? We can hash this out.
I guess I could ask her. Yeah, Cindy, what does it
mean? We've got about 40 minutes left in the show, and we're talking with Maureen St. Germain, and we've got Seth Michael, super psycho, super psychic medium and long-term friend. So,
well, I'm really happy to hear that story from you, Seth, because one of the people who do clearing work on my team, a real person like you, has also seen dragons come in and help the cleanup.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. You're not the only guy I've seen them, especially when we're doing cleanup work. Yeah, and think about, there's fire dragons, there's water dragons, there's air dragons, there's earth dragons, and then there's just another entourage of dragons that have started to come in because we've accepted them. And so the more people that are calling in their dragons, the more they'll come. And a person could have one dragon, but you could have way more, and think of a dragon like a car. Some people have one car in their garage, but, I have more than one. Dragon, that is.
Once upon a time, now I'm poor. Yeah.
Dragons are free.
Woohoo! Now, okay, a Judeo-Christian serpent of the Old Testament is what the Abrahamic serpent is.
Oh,
I have never heard of this.
Okay.
But it might be the same. But, it's funny. There's like stories of St. George slaying the serpent.
Mm-hmm.
And
St. Patrick driving out the snakes as well.
Yeah. The original story for St. George is it wasn't about a serpent at all. It was about some evil people.
Mm-hmm.
And the story got convoluted, to serve the mission of whoever wanted to make it about driving out the dragons. It wasn't the original.
Sure.
It's so funny. People don't realize how much our history is traded out on us when we're not looking. For example, I have a friend who visited Montserrat, and that's a beautiful place in France, in Spain rather, that is a place of pilgrimage, and it's an incredible mountain that can be seen from 100 miles away, and it jagged, amazing thing, and there's this beautiful chapel, and this is an amazing experience to go. And when she went, there was a statue of two bishops on the wall to one of the little grottos. One was a male bishop and one was a female bishop. Today, there's only one. And his gender is male.
Mm-hmm. I get where you're going with that. It's been changed by people with agendas.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my story of the dragons, that they were driven out and now they're back.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what they told me. And like I said, I didn't have any connection with the dragons. The closest I ever came to a dragon before that moment was buying a toy dragon for one of my sons when he was little. And he wanted one, and I complied. That was it. But I will tell you, I have dragons behind me. I have dragons in front of me. I have dragons all around me. One of my fun stories about the dragons is a woman who was afraid of flying. And, she really was terrified. And I had told her about the dragons. And she was a gifted healer, and she could see into the ethers. So she had the ability to see, when she was working on it. She was a craniosacral healer. And so here she's sitting on the plane, white knuckling it, getting ready to take off. And so she starts calling in, if I have any dragons, I need them now. And she ended up with like 4, like a white one on top, a red one on the left, and a green one on the right, and like a yellow one on the bottom, underneath the plane. And okay, so she calms way down right away. And then when they hit bumpy weather, and that happens a lot on planes, mm-hmm. at least once up each flight, right?
At least some.
She starts to freak out again, and the dragon says to her, "Do you want to live?" "Well, yeah." "Okay, then let us handle it." Which is so cool.
But
So, I am amazed every single day of the magic that comes forward. I called in dragons yesterday or the day before for someone I was working with who is dealing with some drama around some craziness that's hard to explain, but it involves somebody who's really, I would say, unwell and being very narcissistic and inappropriate. Mm-hmm. And he discovered something unexpectedly. He was searching for one thing and suddenly found some other information that was unrelated to his situation, but is helpful to his overall situation. And it also helped him see that he wasn't the only one that was having this experience. And that changed everything. And I know that was the dragons. And I even said to the person, look, that you finding that was so random. That has to have been the dragons.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Came in and helped, took care of, and enlightened.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Truth and knowledge. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So it's pretty wonderful to have this as an asset, if you will. Mm-hmm. Somebody else has assets, but we do too.
So there. Now, okay. It mentioned that you do a lot of work with angels as well, and what do you use the different, like say a dragon over an angel in a certain situation, or to go along with the person you're having a session with, their own beliefs, and what they're more comfortable with?
Okay, so first of all, I prefer to not know anything about what people know or believe when I do a session with them.
Okay.
And of course, I have regular clients that I know that I work with, but I push what I know about them aside.
Okay.
So we'll start with that. So I just name what comes in. And sometimes it's a complete shock to people. Sometimes they go, yeah, I had a strong feeling that was true. So you just don't know. And as far as how do you choose who to call, who are you going to call?
Right.
And the answer is, when your feet are in trouble, you call a podiatrist. When your back is in trouble, you go to a chiropractor. When you got stomach problems, you go to an internist. So the same is true. All their archangels all have different skill sets that they bring to the table. And so it is useful when you're feeling unsafe to call an Archangel Michael. It is good to call Uriel for help with your career. It is good to call Chamuel with relationships. It is good to call Gabriel to help you communicate better. It is good to call Raphael to help you with healing. And with the dragons, their purpose is to help us get where we need to go with grace and ease, to understand what we need to understand easily, and to help us stay in the path of authenticity for ourselves and for the people we attract in our life. So with the dragons around, things open up and you get to see. And so it's kind of like that. It's just another resource that is here to help us.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to the park, for example, there's a park in my neighborhood that just finished redoing. They've completely renovated the park. And there is the coolest playground equipment I've ever seen. And it's all different kinds. There's a traditional merry-go-round thing, but then there's a climbing thing, and there's a structure where you can do balance stuff. And it's so amazing how many different skills can be used on that little playground. And the variety of choice that the children have because of all the new toys and equipment that are being brought in there. And I think that that's what's happening in the reality. We are so supported by all of life to succeed in our ascension, becoming fifth dimensional and staying in our bodies and not dying, staying here and building a whole new reality, that we've got support galore. If a student isn't doing well and the mother is super wealthy, she's going to hire a tutor. Mm-hmm. She's not going to risk the child not making it, and that's what's happened. We have all these tutors around us. We have somebody to do our laundry. We have somebody to do, everything for us. But we have to ask. That's the only key. We have to ask. So every little thing we need to do, every little thing we are faced with, when we ask for help, the energy changes and we get it.
Do we need to know the name of the specific angel, or can we just say what we need help with and ask for that one to come in?
You can do it that way, or you can do it by name. And I'll tell you why, Seth. It's very cool. When you're first starting out, you don't know who to call, but you know that you believe in angels, or you think angels sound like a pretty good deal. So then you just say, I'm calling an angel to help me with blah, blah, blah. If you want, what happens, though, is you get success. And you think, wow, I want to know more. You're inspired to learn more. And then you learn about what these messengers of God represent. And the messengers of God, the angels, their primary purpose is to bring the love of God within reach to humans. And the way that normally happens is through miracles and help in ways that you just, like these leg up kind of energy. And that's their primary focus. I call it miracles and help. So if you don't know what kind of angel you need, then you just say, I need angel help. If you start to learn what each one is, then you know who to call. And I have a couple of CDs with guided meditations to the archangels. And, this is an inspiration to people, because what happened is when I created the meditation, and again, I always send it out for feedback and then make adjustments based upon the feedback. My neighbor said to me, Maureen, I really like your invocation. but you're already on the next one by the time I'm ready to repeat it. Could you leave a space? And I thought, what a novel idea. So I did. There isn't anybody out there that does that. And so the way you learn is because you're saying after me, I'm asking Archangel Michael to fill me with the energy of the will of God and to know my highest and best choice at any time, or whatever the phrase is, whatever that part of the meditation is, because we know Archangel Michael is the ray of the will of God. And then, there's a long meditation on Archangel Uriel because he's got so many qualities, and they're so useful in our life. And he showed up in this particular guided meditation has got a lot of biblical references. And the benefit of that particular CD, my goal was so that anybody who wanted to, work with the angels could do so comfortably, even if they'd been raised in a traditional environment, and they could hand that CD to someone in their family who was still very traditional, because it wouldn't offend and it would help educate.
I wanted to apologize here. Augie, my big doggy came down and he was wanting snacks and saying hello on the line, so I had to mute me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's that old. The elementals, the dogs especially, and cats too, are so good at knowing. Okay, something good's going on. I want to get in the yummy spot.
Exactly. Yep. Go see Mom for a snack while I'm at it too.
Yeah, understood. Understood.
You've got some great meditations listed on your website, by the way. Activating your sixth sense, golden bowl meditation, bringing the golden glow. Here's the Call in the Dragons, Legend of the Phoenix meditation. All kinds of them.
Mm-hmm. One is really useful.
One. Okay.
Say it again.
I was just saying, make your year a good one, which we're just coming up on a new year again.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And there's a good story behind that, and that is, I was working with someone who was so depressed and so down that all she could think of is what she didn't want. And she'd had a really rough 6 months. She had a new baby. She didn't have enough money. Her partner was stingy and mean. One time she went to buy diapers and her credit card failed, awful stuff like that. And she was just so down. And, she had a big school loan, all of it. And so I'm sitting with her and she's telling me, well, I don't want to be old and be poor, and I don't want this and I don't want that. And I said, all right, that's it. And I started writing down everything she said. And I said, I will bring this back to you with an antidote for everything you say. And then you're going to repeat the antidote. So the next day, she said, I thought of 2 more things I don't want. So the first thing that happens when you write a list like that, and this is a good practice anyway, when you write a list of everything you don't want, you offload that from your brain, and your brain no longer needs to carry it around. And then if there was other stuff you also don't want that's stuck somewhere in the deep crevice of your brain, it comes up. Mm-hmm. So then I made a list, and I think it was like 30 things. And they're all like written in a very proactive way. I'm a woman of wisdom. What I do and say in the world matters. Like that, And she would not even remember who she was back then. And this is a woman who, when she wrote this, she was in a very low part of her life. And then she went through a horrible physical accident where she fell from a loft to the floor.
My!
Mm-hmm. There wasn't a gate to protect her. Lost her balance, went right over the edge. And what do I want to say? And then went through several different jobs. And she recovered from that, and then went through several jobs. And you look at her today, and you think she's wildly successful. She has plenty of money. She has a beautiful home. She's a beautiful, amazing daughter. She has a new husband that she adores, and he adores her. not even the same woman. Mm-hmm. And I know these affirmations work because they completely obliterated all her fears and then put her in a proactive place. And one of the things I tell people is, when you have a lot of negative thoughts, one of the fastest ways to kind of fix that, I know I'm being negative, but I don't know what to do about it, and don't make me work too hard because I'm pretty mad about all this stuff. So you take, every time you catch yourself, and you have to pay attention, and you ask your angels and guides to help you pay attention, because maybe you don't want to pay attention to that. So you ask for help to pay attention, then you notice when you say something or think something negative. And then the game is you have to come up with 2 positives to go with it, or 3 positives to go with it. So I hate my job, but I love the pay, I love my coworkers, and I have great vacation schedule, like that. What that does is the first positive antidotes the negative, and then the rest are all seeds. And so it's kind of like a cue to fix that, because you're now planting seeds. Every time you think of something you don't want, let's plant some seeds about what you do want. And Seth, I so appreciate you looking at my website and naming a bunch of CDs. One of them I would really like to share, because I know there's at least one person out there that needs this, and that is the prayer before surgery.
Yeah.
And these are not expensive. They're a couple of dollars. And the point is, when you're going into surgery, you want to have a bunch of angels on your side. And again, these are helpers that can work miracles. And, the prayer before surgery posts angels at the 4 corners of the surgery room, your recovery room, asks your higher self to work with your surgeon or whoever's to do whatever, so that you're highest and best good. And, one of my students told me a story that, I've given them so much information about the higher self and how important it is. And she had a client, and her client was a medical doctor. So here she has this she's an alternative healer, and she's healing a medical doctor. But this medical doctor had a propensity for panic attacks. And apparently the panic attacks can be quite overwhelming and devastating. So she ended up being hauled off to the emergency room for a panic attack. And she'd already had one incident where she was given a medication that's pretty standard for that kind of thing that she almost died from. Now, when you're in the panic attack, you're not able to actually communicate what your needs are. So when she knew she was being hauled off to the emergency room, she had been in a session with her alternative healer, and the alternative healer insisted that she go to the traditional, so this is big. You need to do something about it now. You can't wait. And she said, can you please do something? So she didn't know what to do. So she asked the higher self of the doctor that was her client to communicate with whatever doctor was assigned to her in the ER, so that she would get a treatment that would be helpful to her and not harmful. When she got to the ER and the doctor was working on her, he was going to do one injection. They're going to give some kind of a chemical into the body right away. Mm-hmm. And he had such a strong feeling, he said, I'm just going to go with my gut. Change that, blah, blah, blah. And if he had done the first protocol, she probably would have died.
Wow.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yes,
and the remote healer, I say the remote healer, but the alternative healer, what she did was simply to connect the patient with the ER doc so that they could communicate at a higher level, and that the ER doc would be compelled to do what was needed in the moment. So, we can do so much to change the reality. We are so powerful. We are so powerful. And that's probably the biggest message that people need to take in. And one of the ways we give away our power is when we say, I have to. I have to do this, I have to do that. And it's really important that we remember to choose rather than I have to. So I choose to be on the show. I don't have to be on the show. I choose to be on the show. Mm-hmm. I choose to get this report done because I promised my boss I'd have it done tomorrow morning. I get to pick up my kids now, and I need to leave because I don't want them to be the last one being picked up. I get to have dinner with my honey. Whatever it is, to choose it, put your power back in the center where it belongs, in the center of you. When you say I have to, there's something outside of you that is forcing you to. And language is so strong and important. So, if you're listening to me here on this show, please stop saying I have to and banish that word from your vocab and find other ways to express your desire to do or be where you need to be.
That's really powerful.
It is. I'd say it's go a more self-affirming and just something, but like you say, go and doing the higher way. Yeah, to get where you need.
Not only that, but then you become Wonder Woman or I don't know, Superman, because that power that you used to give away, you have now anchored back in your body, and then what you say happens. What you think and choose happens because you are that powerful. And in the old way, we were taught not to do those things, but it's because there were beings that didn't want us to be powerful or strong.
Indeed so.
Then they couldn't, do what they do. So,
yeah. All about the control over you.
And I liked the story with the higher self, talking to the higher self that way. I do a lot of recommendations that way when clients come in and there's they just can't get through to their husband, or their son is on drugs, or there's just nothing they can do and they feel so powerless. But the suggestion is, my guides taught me that we could talk to each other's higher selves. So just going that way, like on the back end, and then when and if that person is receptive, they'll get that message.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I agree. That's pretty, yeah.
And then putting that energy out there into the universe is always good anyway, right, guys?
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Once we start to realize that we have it, I took a group of people through a meditation this past weekend, and one of the women has her inner sight opened, and we did a meditation with the Hathors. Now, this is something you can do at home. If you have a study group or a group of people that are like-minded, do a bigger group because it's way more powerful in a group. And get my Hathor meditation, which is on the CD called Mantras for Ascension. This Hathor meditation is 20 minutes long, and then you have to sit there for 10 minutes silently. And you have your hands in front of you open like someone's going to hand you a baseball. And that's all I told them. So we did this chant for 20 minutes, and we sat for 10 minutes. And she was like bursting at the seams to tell us what happened. And she was given these blue balls, and every time any negative was around, she could just aim the blue ball and toss it in that way, and it would disperse the negativity. Well, we all can use the blue balls. We don't have to be, she's just the conveyor of that information in the moment. But anybody can garner the energy in their hands and say, okay, I'm making a blue ball. This blue ball is filled with so much love and light that anything that comes in contact with it will immediately transmute to its highest form. Pow, pow, pow. I so loved watching Wonder Woman. I thought it was such an amazing movie because the message of innocence, purity, and power were so strong.
Yes, they really were.
And she was really good about finding her invisible airplane, because I don't think I'd be able to. I'd crash into it. Oh, here it is. She just knew right where to go.
It was a psychic link. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a psychic link. Is right. Yeah.
Always did like Wonder Woman. Yep.
Mantras for meditation. So I wrote down
Mantras for ascension. Mantras for ascension.
Okay. For ascension.
And you can do it by yourself, but I highly recommend if you can get a group of people that want to do it together. It's more fun, and then you can share your experiences.
That is awesome.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it is really awesome.
I want to sum up a few nuggets that you gave us about asking for the day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I can't come in contact with. That's a beautiful thing. Going to try that. Symbols for the higher self to show me yes, no, or neutral, right?
And then practice 45 days on unimportant stuff.
That was the next thing, yep. 45 days, higher self-communication, fix negative, help to pay attention, notice three and then go with 3 or 4 positives with that balance.
Same type. Right. So if you hate your job, one of the positives can't be I love my husband and I love my new baby. It has to be I hate my job and it's got to be related to the job.
Got it. Perfect.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing all the knowledge.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. I was wanting to ask, do you still do the essential oil blends? And is Arrow Mandalas, well, it says it's trademarked, so I guess that is yours.
It is mine, and it is an original. And, this is a great story. It'll be fun to share as we wind down.
Yep.
And that is, these blends came to me, and they were to support my work and to support the people who were doing the work I was teaching. And the blends clear out emotional wounds and then supplant it and replant new energy. And there's a lot to the story that, these blends, our emotions create divots in the fascia. And I didn't even know what the word fascia meant when I was asking how they work. And I was told that, this is what's going on. So about 4 or 5 months ago, and this is a specific answer to your question, I went to the altar and I had a ceremony with Mary Magdalene. And the reason I did this is because my business coach said to me, what are you doing about the Aramandalas? And I said, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm promoting them enough. And they're so powerful. And I feel like, I could do so much better. And I said, I'm selling hundreds of bottles, thousands of bottles, but I'm not selling millions. And they're so good. I feel like they should be out there helping many more people. And what a good business coach says is, so what are you going to do about that? Right? You pay them all this money and they say, ask a question you're going to ask yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So I started to laugh and said, I know what to do. And being a mystic and being who I am, I had a ceremony. And that's where we began the story. So I asked Mary Magdalene, who was the channel of these tools, and she was the one who gave the formulas to us. I asked her, if it was appropriate to take the oils to another level, because when we first started out, we realized that they weren't for everyone and that they wouldn't appeal to everyone, and, that maybe they were too strong for humanity. So we had to dilute them with coconut oil. Mm-hmm. So I went back to Mary Magdalene and they said, I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job. And I would be willing to let go. I would be willing to either sell the company, sell the brand and the blends. I would be willing to work with a marketing expert, whatever whatever would work. Mm-hmm. And I'm open to whatever you come up with. If you think this is a good idea, and if nothing happens, then I know then nothing's supposed to happen, because I'm now doing ceremony, being very proactive, asking for help, but also saying I have no attachment to what kind of help it comes to. Mm-hmm. And what happened is within 6 weeks, I met a marketing guy, And initially, I was telling him a story about something else, and my higher self came in and said, tell him about your oils. So I pull out my oils, and I show them to him, and I said, maybe you could help me figure out how to market these. And he immediately backs up and says, well, I have lots of people bring me stuff, and I start to take him back. I don't care, whatever, and I pull him back. And he says, wait, I didn't say no. I just said, I get a lot of offers. And then he said that what happened to him while he was telling me I get a lot of offers, his guidance came in and said, you need to work with this woman and you need to do it right now. So I formed a collaboration with this company called Vibrance, and they have started to manufacture the oils, and we are now selling full-strength blends. And
wow.
So the blends are now listed under the new name, the Orion series. And if you go on my website, there's all kinds of information now about the new blends. And they're the same formulas. But what happened is they went from being 1/4 blend and 3/4 coconut oil to 100% blend. And they're very powerful, very, very powerful, because they're now full strength. Mm-hmm. And we're releasing them in segments. So the first 8 came out in just a month or two ago in October, and the second set will come out in February, and then the third rollout will be in July. So they are, the full set of 24 will be available a year from now, and the reception has been amazing. So.
Very nice.
Yeah, we do have the oils, and that's just a wonderful example of letting go and allowing. And I want to tell just a quick sub-story, if I can.
Sure.
At one point, some of the people on my team said, this is a bad idea. You're making all this money, you're going to give all that up and let somebody else take all the profits and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, but they get it to more people. Isn't that what I'm supposed to be doing, is more people? Mm-hmm. And so, but I did start to get scared because of what this man who I trusted was saying to me, my business associate, one of the people I work with. So I went into the Akashic Records, and I, rolled out all my questions and all my fears. And the record keeper said, you need to share that with the president of that company and, just come clean with what you're worried about. And then I said, yeah, but what if I just tell Rick I've got cold feet? Let me bail now while I can before we sign. And the record keepers gave me 2 words: a missed opportunity. And so I'm on it. Nope, I'm on it. Just like I did in Egypt 20 years ago.
Wonderful. Now,
that's the benefit.
Yay. Now, is that the website that's www.aeromandalas.com, correct?
Yeah, that website now probably will go back to my website and it'll hook you right into the Orion series blends.
Oh, okay.
There might be, on the Aeromandalas site, there may be a posting that says, hey, what happened to the Aeromandalas? And the answer is now we rebranded them. And I had wanted to rebrand them for a long time. So this has been very auspicious, extraordinarily auspicious.
Very, very good. That I would think that you would need to kind of go slowly with using these. Since they're at full strength now, you may need to add a little of your own coconut oil to start out, just so you don't overwhelm your senses from the very start. Was that correct, or what do you think?
You could do that. What we have done is put very tiny orifices on the bottles, and so a little bit goes a long way. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
Nice.
cool.
Try
And
that.
it's very nice. Very, very nice. And you can read what they do and why they're so powerful and check it out. And there's lots of good video explaining, our story and how we came to do what we're doing. Because I've had these oils for a long time, and they've been very well received all over the world. But like I said, I'm selling a lot, but not millions.
It was time for the next step.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly.
All right. Well, would you like to tell folks how to get a hold of you if they're more interested in Akashic Records or your essential oils, or just to talk to you, set up a session with you?
MaureenSt.Germain.com. And if you want to reach my assistant for an appointment, it's Kim, Kim, at MaureenSt.Germain.com. And Maureen St. Germain is spelled MaureenStGermain.com. If you Google my name, you'll get me. I have a YouTube channel. There's lots of good information on my YouTube channel, because practically all my presentations, in all the trade shows are all out there. I have a free blog that people can sign up for that comes out once a month with a free music download, and it's a guided meditation or training of some sort. Let's see. I have a membership program that you can do a little more deeper study of waking up in 5D, which is very helpful to people to really get their arms around what does it mean to be 5D. And then I have an annual program called the Ascension Institute, and I take a very small group of people through a very intense training and upgrading of where they're at. So, from free all the way up to, big investments, lots of opportunities available for people to work with me and to interact with me. And I still do readings, but like I said, I'm booked pretty far in advance. And there's tons of information on my website and my blog. If you really want to dive deep with me and you just don't want to spend any money right now, go read my blog posts. That'll get you started. And also it'll get you a free guided meditation every month. So,
excellent.
And your meditations are very affordable, too. I've noticed there's like $2.99, $9.99. Some was like a set for $24. It was all very affordable. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so grateful to be on your show. I'm so grateful to be part of the network of people that you work with. And it's been really fun talking to you, Seth. I know another guy, Seth, who grew up in the Milwaukee area, and he's back working for Kohler in that same neck of the woods.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I should be. Yeah. Actually, I take that back. He was working and living in the area, and he does probably have an apartment near Kohler, but he actually has a home in California, and he commutes because he's high enough up that he can do that.
He's a super commuter.
Yeah. Direct flights, who cares where you go?
Yep.
And I knew I picked the right fill-in co-host for tonight with Seth. There I was in my own Akashic Records, listening to them.
Very cool. Well, I'm grateful that you did, because I've really enjoyed having you, Seth. Your contributions have been fabulous.
Thank you. And thank you for asking, Wendy. I really appreciate it.
You betcha.
Anytime.
All right, guys.
Cool.
Well, it's time to be gone. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Get geared up for Turkey Day next week. And we are going to have, next Wednesday, we're going to talk about the Christmas horror movies. That was picked by my co-hosts who love horror movies. So there we will. We'll keep it light and simple. Pardon?
Yeah. Okay, light and simple is good, because that was the one show I was going to miss because I have a hard time with horror because I'm such an empath. I feel bad for
sure.
all the victims.
I'm with you, Seth. I can't watch that stuff either. It freaks me out.
Yeah, I'm not that much into it either, but it's okay. The others are, and that will be their show to do with as they see fit.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
And I'm wishing you a weekend of heaven on earth for you and everyone you come in contact with. And for Thanksgiving week, a week of heaven on earth for all the families and all their reunions, for everyone who's listening to hear our voice, and to claim that for yourself for the next few days so that when you do your family reunion, it's going to be super fun.
So be it. Yes.
So be it. And I will take us out with The Witch's Daughter by Ashley Serena. Talk to you later, everybody. Have a good, safe one.
Thank you.
Good night.
Still and look at the moon tonight. Do you see the shadows there? This world is full of twisty frights and spooks who love to scare. Feel how the wind blows through your bones. See the treetops shake and shiver. Just like the wind we take to flight and make the groan and quiver. There is magic inside of you. Hush, my rose, still, and watch as they fly away with the moonlight on their wings. You'll join their merry haunt someday. Hear how they howl and sing. There is magic inside of you. Light on your feet, past windows you creep. Follow the cat as black as ink. One step ahead.